And if not, I'd be very happy to move along with our guest speaker if she's all set and ready. Okay. Seeing no other hands raised, I'd like to again welcome Irina to our meeting. As I hope you've read the bios, she's a reporter for CBS Money Watch and writes and produces videos about technology, and really looking forward to finding out a lot about dark patterns. It really sounds like an exciting topic. So Irina, take over. I'm going to make sure that you can share, or that I've got the share screens on, which I don't want to share a screen. I want to make it available. Oh, let's see. Okay, there we are. So you can share your screens now, I hope.
Excellent. Let me try to do that. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm really excited to speak with you guys today. Dark patterns are one of my absolute favorite topics. It's a rapidly evolving part of online life. And then, yeah, so let's see, where is the share screen option? Live transcript. Can I do that? Aha. Excellent.
Found it. Good. There we go.
All right. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. So thank you, Roy, for that excellent introduction. I've been reporting on tech issues for probably about 6 years now, on and off. I'm interested in all kinds of things, but in particular, technology and privacy, and ways that tech companies and other companies sort of use these tools to get consumers to do what they want us to do. So that's going to be the main focus of the talk today. I'm going to cover basically three large areas. The first is to explain what dark patterns are, show you guys a ton of examples, talk about why they're potentially problematic, and then we'll conclude with a little bit of a discussion of what we can do about them. And I'm hoping this will probably take about an hour, not more than an hour. If folks have questions in between, or if something is not clear, you should feel free to sort of pop up your hand or drop something in the chat box. But if not, I'm hoping there will be lots of time for Q&A at the end. So dark patterns, let's see. This is a pretty new term. It was a new term to me. I've just heard about it a few years ago. You may have heard it floating around, or maybe you've never heard of dark patterns. But it's a new term for a really old idea, which is that companies want people to buy stuff, to spend their money, to hand over, information that would be useful to them. If any of you remember seeing ads like this for BMG Music Group or Columbia House that promise you 12 CDs for 1 cent and nothing more to buy ever, whereas in fact you're signed up for a recurring subscription of $20 a pop CDs that you can't send back. Dark patterns are a new form of this very old idea. Or possibly you had a store in your neighborhood that had a permanent going out of business sign when the store was not in fact going out of business. They were just had that fake sign up there to get you to go in and spend your money. So these are things that have been going on for basically as long as capitalism has existed. Dark patterns are just a new manifestation of this trend using these new online and digital tools that we have. So first, we're gonna define them. The term dark patterns was coined just about 10 years ago by this gentleman, Harry Brignall, who's an interface design expert and an expert witness on all kinds of evil design. What a dark pattern is basically an interface design. So it could be a website design, an app. It's a design that benefits the person or the company that made it and not the user. That makes it hard for you, the user, to do what you want to do. So I pulled out this one definition from a gentleman called Aranesh Mathur, who researches this stuff. He defines dark patterns as, quote, user interface design choices that benefit an online service by coercing, steering, or deceiving users into making unintended and potentially harmful decisions. They also go by a lot of other different names. Sludge is a popular one if you're familiar with the psychological concept of a nudge, where our cognitive biases are used to get us to make good choices. Sludge is the opposite of that. So a good example of a nudge is if you're getting a new job and your job comes with a 401k plan, and on your first day of work, you're told, congratulations, we're going to automatically enroll you to contribute 5% to your 401k, and we will match that. So that's an example of a nudge, because it's trying to do something good to sort of increase the rate at which employees are saving for their retirement by using the human bias to stick with whatever the default is. Sludge is using that same technique, that same cognitive bias for something that's maybe less good for you, such as defaulting you into signing up for a subscription. We'll see a few examples of that later. Also called evil interfaces. That's my personal favorite term: hostile design and manipulative user experience design. So before we get into all these examples, I wanted to show you what would not be a dark pattern. If you think about browsing online today, we get tons and tons of pop-up boxes for cookies, asking for consent for tracking cookies. And if one of these pop-ups were straightforward, were not a dark pattern, it would look something like this. So I mocked this up in Photoshop because I went looking for a not a dark pattern pop-up, and I was not able to find one in the hour that I devoted to this task. So I just made this up. This is not a real box. But if we had a straightforward consent box, it would look something like this. So you have a clear, simple question that's easy to understand. Do you want this website to track your activity? And then you have two options. They're equally presented. There's a yes or no, same size, same color, same font. Presumably you can choose one of them and just continue about your day. Now, what actually happens is you might get a pop-up that's more like this. The question is longer. In this case, it's actually not a question. It is a statement. It says, this website uses cookies. On our website, we use technical, analytical, marketing, and preference cookies. Okay, so as the user, I maybe don't exactly know what that is, but fine, you've told me something. These are necessary for our site to work properly and to give us information about how our site is used. So again, I think that's kind of vague, but all right, it's giving you some kind of information. And then look at how they frame these choices. There's not a yes or no box. Instead, there's a fine by me, I accept box. And there's settings. We don't know what settings are. We're not sure what'll happen when we click on them. And you can tell which box they want you to click because it's bright blue and highlighted. And there you go. So this is we're going to see tons of examples of this, and this is something that is really common across the web. This is something called hierarchy, or sometimes this will be called interface interference, where the actual interface, where you, the user, get to select choices, is designed in such a way that the choice that the company wants you to make is highlighted or is easier. Let's see, this is another example. Not a question, just a statement. This website uses functional analytics cookies to provide the best user experience. And again, you can hit accept. That's nice and bright and checked, or you can go to manage preferences, which is just a little bit vague. You don't know what that is. So this is a very, very common, maybe one of the most common types of dark patterns. And if we look at this taxonomy, academics have tried to sort of break out and define the different types of manipulative design, of bad design. So what the two we just saw, I would call are obstruction, which is the first example here. Obstruction is hiding important information. So instead of getting the yes or the no option, you get the yes, definitely, or the more information, settings, manage my preferences option. They're not making the no clear, they're hiding it behind these other option. It's also an example of defaulting, which is the second type of dark pattern here, which is where the default option, the one that you're already opted into, is the one that the company wants that you maybe don't want, which is you're being defaulted into agreeing to tracking. Close cousin is the forced opt-out, where you're automatically signing up for something, maybe a subscription, and need to jump through a bunch of hoops to opt out of it. There's sneaking, which is fairly common in e-commerce, where you might be on a website shopping or on an app shopping, and when you check out, you've found they've put different items in your cart that you did not select, or maybe they're fees that you did not select. The Roach Motel, one of my favorites, also particularly evil, where it's very easy to sign up for something and it's very hard to cancel it. And again, we'll see lots of examples of this. I'm just going through the main types right now. Nagging, pop-ups that you cannot turn off permanently. You can only turn them off for a while, and eventually they'll come back and ask you to do the thing again. Confirm shaming, pop-ups that are framed in ways that are manipulative, or that make the choice that you don't want seem stupid, such as, no, I don't like great offers, don't sign me up for a mailing list. There's the urgency and the scarcity, where you get things like countdown timers, you get banners that say only, 2 or whatever number of this item are left in stock, and social proof, where it tells you how many of your friends or people you know have used this service. So we're gonna stick with the first few of these for a while and talk about cookies, which is very, very commonplace for these types of manipulative interfaces. This is a screenshot from stackexchange.com. At the very bottom of Stack Exchange, when you go on the page, you'll see this little pop-up that says, by clicking accept all cookies, you agree Stack Exchange can store cookies on your device and disclose information in accordance with our cookie policy, which is linked. You have two options, accept all cookies or customize. And when you hit customize, you get this pop-up where, oh, look, they have automatically defaulted you into agreeing to performance cookies and functional cookies and targeting cookies. And if you want to opt out, you have to select each of these and then hit confirm my choices. Online on your mobile app, this is a pop-up that I get from the Galaxy Store that says receive promotions from Galaxy Store and Galaxy themes. This is separate to your consent to receive marketing information about Samsung. Okay, I didn't know I gave consent for that, but fine. For more information, see privacy policy. You can always change your mind and opt out via the menu. Is the menu linked? It is not. Do they tell me where to find it? They do not. I can only agree, or I can, cancel. I'm not really sure what cancel does. I'm hoping it means that I don't agree, but they don't make that explicit. Here's another example from PayPal on the right. When I log into the PayPal app, I get this little banner that says, we'll use cookies. You can hit yes, accept cookies, which is bold and white and highlighted, or I could learn more and manage my cookies, which will push me into that web of multiple option deselecting. This is a related item that you guys might see if you're ever looking at news online. So this is New York Daily News. And initially this pop-up looks actually kind of straightforward. They detected that I have some trackers blocking tracker blocking software on my browser, and they're like, hey, ad blocking blocks your funding. You have two options. You can get full access and subscribe here on the left, or you can enable ads here on the right. They take roughly equal amounts of space, so both the same color, same size. Actually, those are not the only two options. If you look way down here on the bottom left, there is a continue without disabling option that they've sort of hidden. It's a different font. You can barely read it. It's just a slightly darker gray than the background. This is, again, interface interference. They're designing the interface to not choose the option that they don't want you to choose, which is to just continue reading their website with your ad blockers on. This is a pop-up that you might get from Twitter. If you try to turn off ad tracking, you're in control, it says, really empowering, positive sounding. And then they frame the tracking choice really interestingly in terms of the ads you will see and won't see and how they will benefit you. And then if you look at these choices that they give you, again, it's not agree to tracking, disagree to tracking, it's turn on personalized ads. Again, it's clear that that's what they want you to hit. It's a bold blue option, or you can keep less relevant ads. Lots more options for cookies. I'll go through these a little bit faster, but this is the ABA journal. It has a little consent line here, big bold yes, and then sort of over to the right somewhere you can look at the privacy policy. Who knows what that'll give you. This is Social Science Research Network. You can hit got it, or you can learn more. I'm not really sure what that'll give you. This one I love. It's not even a question. It just says, this website uses cookies. And if you want to know more or withdraw your consent to all or some of the cookies, please refer to the cookie policy, which is, you can see a little link here. By closing this banner, scrolling this page, clicking a link, or continuing to browse otherwise, you agree to the use of cookies. Really a bold ultimatum that they've given here. And again, there's no yes, no, agree. They don't even, give you the single button that says, okay, I agree. They're just sort of like, here's the deal. Don't hit a button to say you agree to this. This is a pop-up that I got, which I believe was from medium.com, the now defunct website where you can self-publish all kinds of stuff. Again, really interesting that they don't actually talk about what's going to be different. They're only telling you that we've made changes to our terms of service and privacy policy, and we encourage you to review them. By continuing to use our services, you agree to the new terms of service and acknowledge the privacy policy applies. If you ever wonder how many people read terms of service or privacy policy, barely anyone. There's been studies on this, and low single-digit percentages of people actually read these. I'm actually one of those two people. I clicked on terms of service and I read them. And one of the significant changes that Medium made in their terms of service was to say that anybody using its website gives up the right to go to court. This is an unfortunately very common aspect of terms of service these days, is that, for everything from credit cards to online services to software, to you can go down the list. They try to put people into mandatory arbitration, or if you have an issue with the company, you agree to go to private arbitration rather than try to sue them or try to do a class action. I don't want to get sidetracked on a tangent, but that happens to be a particular bugbear of mine. So I went through the steps that they outlined to opt out of arbitration. But this is, if you think about the fact that this is the only notice that they're giving you, that, hey, now that you're on the site, you can't go to court. It's really, I would argue, really manipulative. They're just like, we changed some information because you're still on the site. That means you agree to it. Cool, cool. Very depressing picture painted so far, Reggie says. It will probably get more depressing before it gets better. I apologize, but it's very common. So lest we think it's only online services, here's something that I found in Microsoft Office. I think I was just in the settings one day on Excel, and I clicked on a little box called optional connected experiences because I didn't know what that was. And oh, look, it turns out you're automatically signed up to send all your stuff to the cloud so that they can finesse it and serve up, recommendations for you, like smart lookup, Outlook weather, insert online 3D models, which are not things I've ever used, even though I use Excel a great deal. Again, this box was pre-checked. I unchecked it. Let's see. So those are some examples of defaulting and interface interference. Nagging is another very common technique where you might get a pop-up like this. I was reading an article on Bloomberg just a couple days ago. There you get this nice banner up top that says enable notifications. Of course, these are the little pop-ups that you will get in your browser that demand a little piece of your attention. You don't have a yes or no option here. You have enable, which they have highlighted very conveniently. That's the option they would like you to select, or you can hit later. You can't hit no, you can just hit later. And one day this notification will come back again and bug you. This is an example from my employer, cbsnews.com. We also have these notifications. You can turn on or you can say not now, but again, you will get this request anytime you go on the site. Recent example from the New York Times app. They are rolling out a new product called the evening briefing notification. You can hit yes, or you can say not now, and you'll keep getting this banner. This is from a paper that we'll talk about later, but this is an example from a gentleman called Lior Strahilovitz, who bought something on Ticketmaster. This is the Ticketmaster app. And once you have purchased your ticket, you get this offer to be updated all the time with information about your ticket and all the other services that they want you to know about. You can hit OK, or you can hit maybe later. You cannot hit no. Samsung, this is something that I get on my phone frequently. It just says to continue, agree to our updated terms. Again, you don't know what they are. You can hit agree, or you can sort of try to click out of that box, go to a different app. You can't actually make this go away. So hidden costs. This is another fairly common thing that happens if you do any kind of purchasing online. These are all web examples. So this was me about a week ago on 1-800-Flowers.com. You can select this Field of Europe bouquet. It looks really nice. I got the extra large size. When you go to check out, it will give you this little section that says add a gift message. It has pre-selected a personalized printed just because card, where the price you'll see here is $4.99. I did not choose a card. It is an automatic item that's just added to your cart if you buy anything. And if you don't want to buy the card, you'll have to click this button down below, add a complimentary gift message. But if you're just browsing through sort of quickly, if you want to buy something and then pay for it and move on with your life, very easy to miss something like this, miss these hidden costs. So this is another example from avisflowers.com. And I'm realizing there's a ton of hidden fees examples from flower websites in particular, and I actually don't know why that is. But this has happened on all the flowers websites that I checked recently. So avasflowers.com, this person got a Dreaming of Tuscany bouquet, and there's a greeting card service just added to the cart for $3.99. They didn't choose it, they didn't select it. It's just in their cart when they check. This is proflowers.com. If you go through the steps to get a bouquet, so here we are on their website, we got this birthday frills bouquet for $34.99. You put in your payment information, you sort of fill out all those boxes, you put in all the information, and then at the very end, you'll see this is we have a couple different dark patterns here now, because you have these choices highlighted up top that try to persuade you to confirm order now. So don't read it through really carefully. You can just hit confirm order and move on. But if you take a moment and actually read all the information down there, you have your billing address, your mailing address, and you have you have your bouquet, your standard delivery fee, you have a $2.99 care and handling fee. What is that? That's random. You don't know what that is. And at this point in the process, when you, the shopper, have gone through, all this time to enter your payment information, to click through these choices, it's pretty unlikely that you will want to change your mind or go back or do something else to avoid this care and handling fee. It's another sort of human cognitive fallacy where if we've put a lot of effort into something already and something goes wrong, we kind of want to see it through. So that is what they're banking on. Moving on. This is confirm shaming, something that we see a little bit less of these days, but that used to be extremely popular probably like 3-4 years ago. Think about news websites, shopping websites, all the websites that we go to that want to sign us up for mailing lists. You could get a pop-up that looks something very similar to this. Really enticing offer up top. Hooray, said your home. More encouraging language. They ask you to enter your email and to submit it. The submit button actually reads, get my 15%. Again, very encouraging. If you don't want to sign up for their email, it's possible you'll see this little X box in the top right and just exit out. But to actually click no, you have to hit this statement in here that says, no thanks, I'm not into savings, which is incredibly obnoxious. And I think a lot of people read this as basically really manipulative. They may not fall for it, but very, very common. This is an example from Cosmopolitan. You get a little pop-up when you go to the site that asks you to sign up for all the shit you actually care about. What are your options? Obviously, or I'm boring. Again, so this is trying to shame the user into selecting the option that Cosmopolitan wants them to select. Here's an example from a service called Shortform. This is a person who was subscribed to their mailing list, to their service, and they wanted to end their subscription. So first, you can't really see this in the back, but they went through a questionnaire that sort of asks them why they don't want to use the service anymore. And then when they hit unsubscribe, they get this little pop-up with Warren Buffett, who, as far as I know, is not actually involved in Shortform. These people apparently just find him very inspiring, according to their pop-up. And they pull out this quote, this Buffett quote, "The best investment you can make is an investment in yourself." and you can keep your personal growth and hit that big yellow button that they've highlighted for you. Or if you really decide you don't want to use this mailing list service, you can end my personal growth. Okay, more commerce examples. False urgency. Again, shopping online. This is an example from Just Fab. You might browse over there today and find that you can get 2 styles for $29.95, which sounds to me like a good price, but oh look, there's this banner down here that says your offer will end in 59 minutes and 48 seconds. And then as you browse, this timer will actually count down to try to sort of put that pressure on you to buy the stuff immediately. This is from a paper by Arnish Mathur, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It turns out that a lot of these banners are not actually real. Something like 40% of these banners are not true. If you were to go to justfab.com after your 1 hour has expired, chances are those 2 styles for $29.95 will still be available. Then here's another example from mattressfirm.com. Flash sale ends in 8 hours, 54 minutes, 31 seconds. Again, that's a timer that sort of counts down, that follows you as you browse that website. Okay, so this is, we went through a list of different types because again, academics who have started to study this stuff like to really break it down into different types of dark patterns and different ways that they manipulate you, different sort of cognitive biases that they exploit. But if you're, just out in the wild, you'll see that websites and apps use a whole bunch of these. They're not going to use just one. And so this is an example from Delta. I think this was Delta. Lots of flight booking websites use tons and tons of dark patterns. So I thought this would be a good example to look at the different tactics sort of stacked on top of one another. So I had just gone through and booked a trip from New York to Pittsburgh, put in all my info, and down here it says trip protection, which is a thing that they want you to buy. So on the left-hand side here, there's a whole list of benefits you'll get from trip protection. There is a little notice up here. I'll give them credit for that certain COVID-19 related expenses could be reimbursable. So that's a hint that maybe you don't need trip protection, but then they spend sort of 4 bullet points to tell you what is great about trip protection, why you want it. There is a highly recommended box right here to tell you that they really recommend that you get the trip protection. This could be called false hierarchy or interface interference, where they sort of highlight what they want you to do. Right down here, this is an example of something that they call social proof. They're telling you 44,847 customers protected their trip in the last 3 days. So that's trying to use peer pressure or trying to use the human desire to be part of a group and to do what our group does to sort of convince you that this is a good idea. Look, all these other customers are doing it. Things like this can get even more specific. They might say something like, 320 customers from New York protected their trip in the last 3 days. And then if you look at the color choices, you'll see that the yes option is green. It stands out from all the other texts. On the no option, it tells you how much you paid for your trip to try to get you to feel a little bit of that loss aversion. That, wow, you paid $345 for that trip. Wouldn't it be sad if you lost all that money? If you click the no button, it turns red. It wants to make sure that you really, really understand that you may be responsible for all the money that you paid for the trip if you don't protect it. So these are the things. So that's I would call that an example of confirm shaming, where you have to sort of be guilted into admitting that no, I really don't want to pay you extra money. Are you sure? You may be on the hook for all these costs that you paid. This is another example of a panoply of dark patterns. This is from PlayStation Plus. It's from a paper by a gentleman called Lior Strahilovitz, which we'll also talk about later. But one of these paper's authors was trying to sign up for a PlayStation streaming subscription so that they could watch the FIFA soccer. So this is the first screen that you get, and you see a few things going on here immediately. Obviously, the 12-month subscription choice, that is the choice that Sony prefers. It's larger. It's the first choice on the left, which is sort of the most important spot. As humans, or as English speakers, we read from left to right. So this is sort of the first place that you would look at. This is like the priority spot. Again, 12 months, that's what they want you to pick. There's 3 months and there's 1 month. The options sort of get less appealing as you move right, or you can get a free trial. So this person decided that they wanted to do, they didn't want a year subscription. They wanted to do a 3 month or a 1 month, which if you look at the pricing, the 1 month is, you're paying something like 2.5 times the annual rate in order to just pay by the month. But okay, so let's see if we do that. If you try to purchase the 1 month subscription, you will get this warning. It sounds extremely technical and it talks about funding your wallet automatically. But what it basically tells you is if you're choosing to subscribe for 1 month at a time, you will be paying for it automatically every single month. You do not have an option to not pay for it by the month. You are signed up for automatic renewals. This last sentence here tells you you can change the automatic funding settings by going to Settings, Account Management, Account Information, Wallet, Purchase Settings, which is 5 options deep within whatever that menu is. And if you, the customer, do not take a picture or write down these options as you're signing up for it, good luck remembering where it is. So I think Sony's counting on one of two things here. Either the customer will proceed to check out. A good number of them will forget how to unsubscribe from the automatic subscriptions because research has told us that that's what happens. Lots of people say they'll stop subscribing, but they actually don't. And when the customer forgets, she'll be, paying $10 every month automatically for a good number of months, and Sony will make a good deal of money. Or it's possible that when the customer is on the screen, they'll read this, they'll think about the options, and they'll say, "Wow, that's a big pain in the butt. I don't want to automatically pay $10 every month when I can actually go back and just get 12 months for $60 a year, which is actually a better deal." And they sign up for the 12-month plan instead. Either way, I would argue Sony comes out ahead. Subscriptions are an excellent place to, what if your credit card expires the next month? Gene Gardner says, that's very good. Not a tactic I've tried. But subscriptions are a great place to look for dark patterns of all kinds, digital and otherwise. This gets into maybe my favorite name for dark pattern, which is the Roach Motel. So I'm just going to go back a little bit. We got a little hint of this here, where it shows you how easy it is to subscribe for a recurring charge. You actually don't have to do any extra work at all. You just have to hit proceed to checkout, and presumably they already have your credit card info. So you have to do basically nothing in order to pay recurring fees. But in order to not pay recurring fees, you have to go through all these steps in your settings, which good luck finding them. Easy to enter, hard to leave. If you have ever been on the New York Times website or many other news websites, you might have seen an offer like this: special offer, subscribe for this really low price. Subscribe now, cancel or pause anytime, it tells you. Okay, so let's say you subscribe and you do want to cancel, and you navigate to the part of the site that tells you how to cancel your subscription. There are several ways to unsubscribe from the Times. They tell you helpfully, but they all involve talking to people. All you have to do to subscribe is hit a button and put in some credit card information or your PayPal info. In order to unsubscribe, you have to speak with a human, which is a classic Roach Motel model. It takes more time, it's harder. They might give you a hard sell and try to persuade you to not subscribe. It's a little bit annoying. Now, I have actually been able to unsubscribe from the Times in past lives. It has not been that much of a pain, just on my personal experience. But here's an example from a gentleman on Twitter called Dean, who tried to unsubscribe from The Economist. They also make you talk to a live chat person. So here he is speaking with a bot and then speaking with a person called Amani. Welcome to The Economist. This is Amani. How can I help you? Dean says, please cancel my subscription. Totally straightforward. That's what he wants to do. Amani says, I'm sorry to see that you would like to cancel, but I can assist you. As the customer service people are trained to say, please cancel. Dean says once again. Amani says, I am working on your request, implying that canceling a subscription is so incredibly difficult to do. It takes time and he is working on it. And then he says, for feedback purposes, or they say, I don't know if Amani is a he or a she or they, this customer service rep says, for feedback purposes, may I please know why you would like to cancel? So then Dean explains some reasons. I don't get value from it. And Amani says, well, do you have the Economist app? What's interesting is you can select it to show the things that you want to show. The news articles would fit your need. Dean says, I don't want to discuss it any further. This is a ridiculous hurdle just to cancel a subscription. Please just cancel it. Amani says, yes, we are working on making the process easier for our subscribers. But I do think the Economist app would work best for you. You renew on August 3rd, and I would be happy to apply a 50% discount, which would bring your price down to $37.50. I can apply it for you right now. Dean says, please just cancel. I can only hope that at the end of the story, Dean was able to successfully get rid of his subscription. But this easy to enter, hard to leave model is not limited to just making you talk to individuals. So this is an example from me trying to cancel an account with Fubo TV. If you guys are not familiar with it, it is a TV service that lets you watch live sports events, NBA, NFL, college, just all kinds of sports things. But they are, for my tastes, outrageously expensive. It's something like $60 a month, and I don't love sports that much. So, about a month ago, I'm on their website. I look at the account, and where does it say how to cancel? You have to sort of read it really carefully, and oh, you can pause it. Okay, there's this big helpful blue button. Oh, wait, like way down here on the bottom left in this tiny, tiny font, it says cancel subscription. So, okay, so you hit cancel subscription and you get this pop-up. Would you like to take a break instead? Pause your subscription, it'll be easy. Pause subscription is highlighted, that's what they want you to hit. So if you hit the complete cancellation button, you now get a bribe that if you don't want to, do you really want to cancel? We'll give you $50 off. Again, redeem offer is orange or no thanks, just cancel. And then if you look at this a little more carefully, you see they've switched some of the buttons. So on Let's see. So in the second box, the pause subscription was on the right. The complete cancellation was on the left. In the subsequent one, it switched. No thanks, just cancel is on the right. And keep subscribing is on the left. So again, if you're just maybe going through muscle memory to click through a bunch of different boxes, you could accidentally hit this left button and redeem the offer when you thought you were clicking through to just cancel. So if you hit the correct button to no thanks, just cancel, you get yet another nagging notification that asks, are you really, really sure? So if you hit yes, cancel, it will cancel for you, and then it'll ask you to give them some feedback about why you canceled. So I told them I was very unhappy with the screen options, and they haven't gotten back to me, but that is just life. Here is, let's see. So here's an example from the world of politics. I imagine some of you have read this story. The Times did a very deep dive into a lot of Trump supporters who were steered into recurring subscriptions and didn't know it. And the way this happened is these donation boxes, these fundraising offers where they ask supporters to donate to the political campaign, come with these boxes down here pre-checked. The Times highlighted them. This is a Times graphic, but they were not highlighted in the original email. You can make this a monthly recurring donation. And there's a wide variety of boxes, different language where you can, join the Patriots Executive Club, which actually means you make a weekly recurring donation. You get to donate an additional $100. All this stuff is pre-checked, and a lot of supporters, a lot of donors who thought they would be one-time donors didn't realize they were actually being steered into multiple donations. Now, lest you think it is only Republicans who are using dark patterns, this is a mailer that I received recently from the ACLU, which some of you may also have gotten in your lives, full of dark patterns. It tells me, Irina, you've been selected to represent New York by sharing your opinions. Well, that sounds exciting. I've been selected. I like being selected. Let's see. It tells me it's time sensitive. And contains official documents down here, and it even has a deadline. Please respond by September 30th. Also, if you look down below, it has the "Do Not Bend" stamp that makes it look extra super official. And of course, none of these things are true. I have not been selected. It is not at all time sensitive. This is just a fundraising request because I was on some list somewhere that the ACLU ended up purchasing, and they just want me to fill out some questionnaires and give them money. I have not figured out how to stop getting these. I've been getting them for years. So that is a very long and varied list. I could literally go on for hours because this is one of my favorite things to hate read. I actually have a folder on my computer called bad policies and bad design, which is where I put a lot of this stuff. But I am going to pause there. I hope that gives an overview of sort of the types of really manipulative design that can exist out there. And so one question that I often get is, we know this stuff is out there, but how widespread is it really? So actually, I am going to pause there and give people time for questions, since I think folks have questions. Gabriel Goldberg, would you like to ask something?
Sure. This was great. I really enjoyed it. Just two comments. One is that when I see surprises in the shopping cart, the $2.99 care and feeding, whatever they call that, I will often abandon the shopping cart. I will often just say, no, don't bother. If you want that extra $2.99, add it to the base price, and I would probably buy anyway. But when you surprise me at the cash register, I'm just as likely to leave the shopping cart sitting at the register and walk away. Presumably, they're counting abandoned carts, and so all I can say is that I'm trying to vote with my feet and not reinforce their use of the dark pattern. So if more people do that, it might moderate the behavior. The other thing on the New York Times specifically, I had some kind of discount rate on the Times, and then that expired, and I was paying $17 a month. And I liked the Times, but that was a lot of money. And then I saw somewhere else that the Times was offering something much less. And so I called and I talked to a nice rep, and I'd been paying $17 a month for the basic subscription. And what the rep did for me was changing the rate to $1 a week or $4 a month. She upgraded me to the premium subscription that gave me lots more features, including the opportunity to give away a free subscription to someone else. And so sometimes having that conversation is actually not a bad idea, because sometimes the customer rep that you talk to will actually give you a better deal than you had to start with.
Thank you. Those are both excellent points. Yeah, just a comment really quickly to your first point. Yes, the cart abandonment, as the trade press calls it, it's a big problem. They're tracking it. They're trying to figure out how to make people not abandon their carts. I don't know if that's a problem they're ever going to solve, and I don't know how much connection the smart folks at the top have made between the fact that it might be annoying and surprising to get all these fees, and the fact that you don't want to complete a purchase. But yes, totally big problem. I've personally done that myself also. If I get a nasty surprise at the end, I'm like, forget it, screw it. I don't want to deal with you. And yes, I love the point about the Times. I had coworkers who have done something similar, or where they've basically called a rep, and instead of canceling and then resubscribing, they'll just say, look, you have this rate for new subscribers. Can I just get it without going to cancel? And they do it, and it's really good. But so this is not to say that talking to a rep is always a bad thing, but that there is an asymmetry where, at first glance, the option to subscribe is it's very clear, very easy, and then when you get into unsubscribing, it sort of goes into uncharted territory. There's also with cable or utility. Not utilities, but certainly like cable services or other online subscriptions. You can get into a thing where I've had people tell me, the tactic to get your cable bill reduced, it's not to call and ask for a discount, it's to call and say, hey, I need to cancel, and then they will offer to reduce your bill. So there's definitely tactics for dealing with this, but it's when you think about this idea that online is supposed to be very easy and straightforward, and you can make rational decisions as a detached consumer, that's totally not true. They're absolutely playing with emotions, with our cognitive biases, trying to get us to do things in a particular way.
Well, another suggestion is that if you look at some of these either as playing a game with the vendor or being in mortal combat, where you just come in ready to haggle. I've been paying anywhere from a quarter to half the list price for Sirius XM service since I bought my car. And every year and a half, I call up my cable provider, Cox, and haggle with them. And I've managed to keep the bill down to where we want it to be, in spite of their periodic attempts to raise it.
You have more stamina than I. Amazing. Excellent. Ralph, you had a question, comment?
Yes, something similar to what Gabe does with leave your cart. If you're shopping online and you get into one of these loops, I've gone so far as to shut down my computer and reboot it, which is very fast with an Apple with an M1 chip. And I believe that has always worked. Now you can do less drastic things like quit Siri, or not quit Siri, quit Safari. And sometimes that will work. So, but again, I think the payoff is so great for people that they track that you need millions of people doing what sophisticated users can only do. And that's why this is so important to get this information out to users groups. So at least some of us, more of us will fight back. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Roy.
Yes, on a related note, I can't put my hand down. On a related note, I was going to comment on two things. One was the serious issue. Yes, you can really get a cheap subscription, down to $5 a month. And every time they wanted me to renew, I would complain, well, I've got Apple Music. Bring it back to home again. I've got Apple Music. I don't need Sirius. When I'm traveling, I put on Apple Music. But every once in a while, just for the fun, I'd get it for $5. And then they'd finally got me up to getting it for a year. And now, as kind of a rebate from a car dealership, they gave me 3 months of free subscription to Sirius. And what I noticed was an interesting thing when I signed up for it was basically they have created a Sirius streaming app that goes into Apple's CarPlay. So they have entered the competition of streaming the music through CarPlay, which I thought is rather interesting. You don't need a satellite, they just stream it through. The other issue is something that I encountered trying to buy some tickets. I think it was to the National Theater. I was going to buy some tickets to the theater. I went there and the tickets were, X number of dollars, $40 a ticket. I said, oh, that's great. I'll get 2 tickets. Then I went to pay for them and they said, oh yeah, well, we have a service charge of $5 for each ticket. And then I said, okay, well, a lot of them have that. So, okay, I'll go ahead. And then when I went to checkout, they said, oh, here's an additional payment that we have to do for service processing of the service of buying the tickets. Just like Gabe said, I just finally quit. I said, I don't need to go to that performance with all that work and all those charges that they would add. So that was my experience.
Wow. Yeah, that's stunning. Lawrence. I think you are still muted. I see movement.
Oh, sorry about that.
There you go.
I used to design websites for the federal government, and what you cover were a lot of things that used to enrage me when I was trying to build a site using third-party technology, because the government would like to have things like online discussions, but not necessarily host the service. And the other services would do things that violated government policy. And so while you were doing your presentation, my spouse is in the background just laughing at me, because you talk about a lot of things that enraged me. But one thing that the opt-in for tracking is one thing that I'm very sensitive to. And when Apple updated their new iOS so that it automatically informed you about the tracking policies, I went through every single game that I had on my phone, and I had something like 190 games. And if you're a network manager, you spend a lot of time playing with games as things reboot. I now have 4, because only 4 of the games would not track me. All the others, they would give me a choice of accept, and then there was no other option. So my option was to delete the game, and I only have 4 games left.
Wow. 4 out of more than 100. That's amazing.
Yeah. But anyway, you did an outstanding job. And you presented it in a way that I think people understand. So I'm very impressed.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm very happy to hear that. Cheryl, you had a comment question?
Yeah. I enjoyed this so much, and I'm going to try to make this quick. It's a little roundabout, but it's not exactly what you're saying here and explaining. I have Adobe, and I have their suite, and I got it a long time ago, and it's CS6. It's not the cloud, and I paid less for it because I was taking a class. So the school has their. But anyway, it's all of the parts and that you get, and whether you're a teacher or a student or a civilian, it's the same, suite. So I've had troubles with it in various ways, but this took the cake. I transferred, and people will say, "Oh no, you're not supposed to do that." But I migrated from one computer, the old computer, to the new computer, and apparently, when I went to open Photoshop on the new computer, it said you don't have Adobe Applications Manager. So I'm like, well, why? Why don't I have that? So I tried to search around. I couldn't find it. So they send me on a journey to find Applications Manager. So I'm, searching around. Every time it says that, I click on it and I go somewhere else that has nothing to do with it. Then I go on a community. Oh, the community says, yeah, we had trouble downloading Applications Manager. So they had suggestions. I tried the suggestions. They put you nowhere. And it's like, I was just going like ready to pull my hair out, literally. And so finally I work around it. Somehow I got to the point where I could just download a whole new suite, which is like 4 gigabytes. So, okay, so I start downloading one day. I come back to the computer the next day and it says connection lost. So I was like, I'm sitting there. So I go again and start it up again. And I'm doing other things and then connection's lost. You know how slow it is. Well, finally I decided this had what I did was to solve the problem. I went black. I blacked out. I turned off all my devices, phones, iPads, complete. Other computer, black. And then it started downloading. And finally, it downloaded. And I was afraid to touch it because I figured there's gonna be something that blows up here, right? When I go to open it up again. But I finally did open it up. But I'm just saying, this has left me with Adobe's evil. And that's all I can say.
Amen. Wow, that is.
Yeah, I mean, I paid for it. I should be able to get it back if I need it. All the other companies let you do that. But Adobe, no, they really want you to go on the cloud. So every time you'd go into one of these circular things, you would go back and see here's Adobe Cloud. You can easily get this. So Thank you very much for your talk. It was really informing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and hopefully, we'll get to in part 2. We'll talk about a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. People are trying to figure out how to fix this, but it's a complex issue.
Yeah.
So let's see. I got 4 more questions, and then I think we'll move to the solutions part. But Neil Ferguson, is it Fergie or Fergie? I hope I didn't butcher your name.
It's Fergie, but I'll answer anything, especially for dinner. Anyway, I had no idea what dark patterns was. The club said it's going to do this dark patterns event, which is very good. I enjoyed your dissertation, and now I know what they are. And I count them all the time on the internet. I didn't know that they were that common. And I thought reputable companies wouldn't do that, but they do. The subscriptions I have with various companies, like with Microsoft for their Office and Adobe for Photoshop, because I use those, so I don't try canceling them. But I did have a session with Adobe Photoshop. I inadvertently subscribed to one of their programs. I didn't want it, but I paid for it for a while. I got tired of it, and I went to cancel it, and I went through this rigmarole. The person that I chatted with, talking and doing something, which I did, and I finally canceled, but it was really difficult canceling it. But I didn't think reputable companies do this, but they do. They really do. I don't get involved with reputable companies this way, but they're stinkers. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great point, and actually, I'll touch on that in the last bit of this, because that's I think that's a lot of folks feel that way. And there's reasons that even reputable companies do these dirty tricks. So thank you, Diana. You are still muted. You may need to unmute. Oh, you're unmuted for a second, and now you're back to mute. And now I think you're. Let's see. Let's see if I can unmute you here. I don't think I can do that.
I couldn't help wondering. In schools that teach web design and marketing, is this a whole course on how to create these things if you're designing a web page or website? And like I said, that might be a frivolous question, but maybe somebody knows that it is. So that's what I was wondering.
I think that's a great question. So I have not gone through interface design courses, but I have talked with designers who do this, and actually a very close relative of mine works in the computer world. And I was talking with him yesterday, just telling him, hey, I'm going to do this presentation, but I'm excited about dark patterns. And I explained to him what they were, because he wasn't actually aware of the term. And when I explained with her, he was like, "Oh, so you just mean like effective design?" I think this has been completely normalized in the design space and in commerce overall. It's just there's these tactics and there's other tactics, and it's all in this pile of sort of tactics that you use in design to get users to do what you want. So yeah, I don't think there's like a. It'd be cool if there were like a separate course, like defense against the dark arts, defense against dark patterns. But as far as I know, this is just part of design. Yeah, Bill.
Yes, this happened a couple of years ago, so I'm getting a little hazy on some of the details. But my senior neighbors, I put in the chat. His granddaughter took his credit card and was buying a whole bunch of stuff. His poor eyesight and can't get online, so he couldn't monitor daily what was happening with the account. So he allowed me to get online at his account and see when these charges were coming up. And so I called for him, with him next to me, and canceled the card. This was a credit card through SunTrust. And he got the new card. And the next time I checked on his account, the charges had ported over. And in fact, some new charges on the old card had ported over. Now, we had explained that these were fraudulent charges, and the bank said that they would cancel them, but they were still showing up on the new card. So I called again and talked to an agent. I said, listen, the reason we're getting the new card is to eliminate these charges that are coming up here. And the agent said, okay, I'll send in a special note and issue you, a third new card. Well, the charges showed up again. The final solution was to get a credit card from Wells Fargo and just forget getting credit cards through SunTrust at all. But that was really, really frustrating to see those charges that kept porting over to the new cards, when the whole point of getting the new card was to eliminate them.
Wow, that's incredible. That's really.
It is. Yeah, I didn't believe it when it happened, but it did. And maybe they've updated now, but it happened.
That's really wild. That's wild. Okay, so I have James and George, and then we're gonna go to the second half. James, go right ahead.
Well, I once in a while, when I'm shutting down something that has to do with Google, I'm not sure if it's Google or Safari, and as you're shutting it down, a thing pops up and it says, in the last 24 hours, Google has blocked 46 sites from tracking your movements online. Or maybe it's Safari that does that. What's the value of that? I didn't ask them to do that. It's fine with me if they block somebody from tracking my movements, but what are there aside from, that's one example, I guess, if somebody says it's watching out, I'm a little suspicious, but it says it's blocking people from tracking me. I'm wondering if there are any apps, universal apps that watch over all of these things and help you out or block stuff.
Yeah, there's quite a few, and actually I can add to the last slide here. I can throw in a few privacy sort of apps that y'all can download. I use Privacy Badger, Ghostery. There's also ad blocking software that does this. It's a little hard to say, James, what's going on with you in particular, because it could be a few different things. It could possibly just be Safari, especially because Apple is now sort of doing this big pivot on privacy where they sort of block people by default. Yeah, I mean, I think they tell you, Privacy Badger and other extensions, browser extensions that I have also have little pop-ups that say, we've blocked 15 trackers on the site. I think that's their way of showing their value to you. They're like, you didn't know.
Who does that? Who does this?
Let me double check. Let's see, I'm just going to open up another browser here. So I have Privacy Badger from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. I have Ghostery, which you can get from the Firefox extension store. And I have some others that are turned off right now, like AdBlock Plus, that just blocks sort of tracking ads. And then one of them, I actually don't know offhand which one, but one of them will sometimes give me this very subtle purple pop-up at the bottom of the site that just says, we blocked this many trackers. Yeah, I would guess whatever app is doing that on your computer is doing it to show value, because you can't see if they block, you can't always tell when they track you, and you can't tell if they don't track you. So this is the app telling you, like, hey, we're useful, we're working on your behalf. Cool. So last question from George, and then we'll go into part 2. George, what is up?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for the presentation. I think it is really, really helpful to review these kinds of things. But I guess my comment is that I think these are techniques, trying to get people to use emotions in making their, buying and selling decisions rather than sort of rational reasons. Is something that's been going on ever since there were buyers and sellers. I can recall of how much fun it used to be to go buy a car, and speaking to a car dealer and trying to ascertain what price you're actually going to pay for the car. That's all pre-internet. I do think, one, basically the key to success in this is just, trying to summon up the, I don't know, I guess what is it, emotional intelligence or whatever, to recognize your emotions, trying to ascertain, the price of something and what is its value to you. And just a couple other comments. I think, software companies moving to subscription models, I think I can understand that, especially when you look at the history of software piracy that has gone on. And certainly something like Adobe, again, they should make it easy to cancel subscriptions, but, they have, will claim that they have lost a great deal of business to software piracy. So, I think a subscription model is fairly easy to manage, and that way who your customers are and can develop a relationship with them and give them the kind of software that they want. So that's
thank you. That's a great comment. And I could not have asked for a better transition to part 2. Because I agreed with that. That thought for a long time that we as consumers should just sort of summon up the courage and just be a little smarter about these things and be really vigilant when we're online or when we're interacting with apps. And it's annoying, right? Because you want to just sort of use your technology in a way that's straightforward, that you don't necessarily have to do a lot of thinking, and yet you do sort of have to be vigilant to avoid being taken advantage of. So that was sort of my feeling until just a couple months ago, when a new paper came out that threw a lot of my thinking on its head. It's not this paper that is up on the screen, but I just threw it in there as another resource that also breaks down a lot of these different types of dark patterns. And also this is one of the first papers that looked at how widespread this stuff was, right? So we know we come across it a lot, but how prevalent is it really? So these guys crawled about 11,000 shopping websites, and they found that 1,200 of them had some sort of dark pattern. It could have been the timer, it could have been the confirmed shaming pop-up, additional fees, stuff being stuck into your basket. That's a lot, like 1 in 10, more than 1 in 10, 1,200 websites. That's a lot of dark patterns, and a lot of these were what you would think of as pretty reputable websites. So I'm just going to click on this link to show you guys really quick. This is a New York Times article based on part of that study about this website ThreadUp, which I think in other parts of their work, they do really good work. It's a used clothing online store. But for a long time, they would give you these little pop-ups that say, Abigail from Raleigh just saved $274 on her order. 560 of this type of dress was sold in the last hour. That can create a lot of excitement for the shopper. It's like, ooh, real people are buying this stuff. A lot of the stuff is being sold, and might create a little bit of pressure where you want to jump in, you want to, complete your purchase quickly, just in case that thing that you want gets sold out. It turns out all these pop-ups were completely fake. They were not tied to actual purchases. They were not tied to individuals. Ms. Arnesh Mathur and his team had they found the code that was powering these pop-ups, and it was just sort of going through a pre-programmed list of names, locations, and etc. ThreadUp said, no, they are real people. We're just, anonymizing them for their protection, but they then stopped doing this stuff. So that's just one example of a site that, I have thought of as reputable, doing this really pretty shady stuff. Okay, so I wanted to, and then just again, in terms of reputable companies not doing this, this is another paper here from the University of Zurich from a couple months ago called Obfuscation in Competitive Markets. They found that in really competitive markets, companies, instead of trying to compete on price and good products, they could do the opposite. They could be led to, hide the price of their product and confuse consumers as to what the price actually is. And that's when you get these hidden fees, these interfaces where you can't figure out what stuff actually costs. So to the neoclassical argument that perfect competition will fix this, it really hasn't so far. Again, really prevalent in the digital economy. I think also, especially with a lot of tech companies, tech startups. Some of them are appealing to investors who want really fast growth, and a lot of them just want really fast growth. If you're looking at like the biggest companies today, they're all tech companies: Apple, Facebook, Amazon. They want to get more customers quickly. They want the customers to spend much more money. They're not necessarily thinking about, are we doing this ethically? What's the best way to do this? They just know that certain, ways of designing the interface, ways of designing the product mean more sales and more money, and so they go for it. And it turns out they really work. This is a quote from Harry Brignall, who again was the man who coined the term dark patterns. He gave a speech at an FTC workshop back in April. Really good workshop, and I've thrown a link to it at the end of this PowerPoint if you wanted to peruse the whole thing. Lots of academics talking about this stuff and lots of policymakers. But he basically said that, when he first came up with the term dark patterns, and he came up with this site darkpatterns.org, where he showcases a lot of these sneaky techniques. He was thinking, shining a light on the problem would make it go away, that consumers would get wise, and that companies doing this stuff would be embarrassed and stop doing it. And that really hasn't happened. What's happened was the opposite. We see more and more of this stuff. And the reason we see it is it's, incredibly lucrative for them. When they're looking at, do we go on the straight and narrow? Do we use above board techniques versus do we use these techniques that are not illegal, that they could use, or just like maybe a little annoying to some people, and get massively higher returns, massively higher sales? It's a no-brainer for them. They will go for the thing that makes them more money. Let's see. So I wanted to go through this paper a little bit, which is a paper that came out just a couple months ago. That was really the first academic paper to look at how people respond to dark patterns, to what kinds of things work and they don't work. This is linked. It's an openly accessible paper. It's not paywalled or anything. It's by these two legal academics called Jamie Luguri and Lear Strahilovitz. So in this paper, Shining a Light on Dark Patterns, they partnered with a research company, and what they did was they got several thousand respondents, American adults, weighted to sort of look like the American population. They got several thousand respondents to do this research project, and then they used a lot of these techniques on them and observed how these people reacted. And the way they did this was the participants were told that they were going to do a survey on their attitudes on privacy. They answered a bunch of demographic questions. They answered a bunch of attitudes questions. And then halfway through, they were told, based on your answers, you've been identified as a person who cares a lot about your privacy, and we've enrolled you in this privacy protection plan. You will get a free month, and then you will pay X dollars per month. Click here if you want it. So this is and this hasn't actually happened. They didn't actually enroll any of these people in this plan, but they told them they had to do sort of a classic bait and switch. You think you're doing one thing, and then you're signed up for this purchase that you don't really want. And then a few different things happened. So this is the control group had a pop-up box that just said, accept or decline, and then they could move on. A group of people in the mild dark patterns experimental group, they got this box where, the service is described at the top, and then instead of yes or no, instead of accept or decline, they got this box that said accept and continue, recommended, or other options. And then when they click on accept and they click on other options, instead of accept or decline, you again get this confirmed shaming pop-up where your option is, I do not want to protect my data or credit history, or after reviewing my options, I would like to protect my privacy and receive data protection and credit history monitoring. And then there was another group with sort of even more aggressive dark patterns where they had to sit through, multiple pop-ups. Some of them had statistics on how prevalent identity theft is. Some of them sort of forced the users, the survey respondents, to sit through these windows for at least 10 seconds, and it had a countdown timer for how long you had to spend on that window. We've seen those, with online ads, for instance, with video ads, there's like a timer for how long you have to look at the thing until you can skip it. And then So these are examples of sort of the windows that they had to sit through. And then if they still wanted to decline, they would get this trick question. Again, this is the very aggressive dark patterns group. And this question says, if you decline this free service, our corporate partner won't be able to help you protect your data. You will not receive identity theft protection, and you could become one of the millions of Americans who were victimized by identity theft last year. Are you sure you want to decline this free identity theft protection? If they hit no cancel, they were actually signed up for the data protection plan. They were treated as having signed up for it. If they hit yes, they were saying, yes, I am sure I want to decline. So this is sort of a trick question framed as a double negative that's really designed to confuse you. And then after this, the participants were debriefed and they were told sort of everything that was going on. So it turns out that the dark patterns really, really, really worked. The control group that sort of had the upfront accept or decline checkbox, just about 11% of them accepted the plan. They said, okay, you've signed me up for this data protection plan. Okay, I'll take it. The mild dark patterns group, so that's the group that had the box that said accept or decline, recommended, or other options, and they just had to sit through a few pop-ups. More than 25% of them sign up for the plan. So these people basically doubled the uptake rate of this fake product just by putting in, a couple additional pop-ups and slightly changing the interface, which is, that is a stunning, that's a stunning rate of uptake. Again, think about it from the perspective of a company, just change a few different pop-ups, and if your sales double, yeah, who wouldn't do that? Obviously you would do that. And then with the extremely aggressive dark patterns where, they had a trick question at the end where people were, subjected to multiple pop-ups, so they had to sit through for multiple seconds. A few different things happened. So they had a few dropouts at that point. A fair number of people just closed out of the window and left the experiment altogether. Which you can think of as, if I'm on a website or if I'm making a purchase and I just get really annoyed and frustrated, I could just close that window and leave altogether. But at the same time, the really aggressive dark patterns had an even higher acceptance rate, where, depending on whether you count the dropouts as leaving or as accepting the data protection plan, the acceptance rate either tripled or quadrupled. Nearly quadrupled with these new manipulative design techniques. The other thing that was notable is that, they asked the participants at the end of the survey how they felt before they had been debriefed. There was an open freeform box where they could, add in comments. People in the aggressive dark patterns group, some of the people were really annoyed. And they let the experiment know that they were annoyed. But folks in the mild dark patterns group, the folks who just had a few of the annoying pop-ups, they were not more noticeably angry. They were fine. They were the same as the control group. So again, the lesson, if you're thinking of this from the point of view of a business, is just add a few more pop-ups. You manipulate your consumers a little bit, you get them to accept this thing, but you're not risking making them really pissed off and go somewhere else. They also, in another experiment, a related experiment, they ran a bunch of different types of dark patterns. So there was one that said, there's only three free trials left, limited time offer. This is going to run out in 10 minutes, which is a scarcity pattern. There was a confirm shaming dark pattern where in order to opt out, they had to click on a box that said, I do not want to protect my data. There was another one that said how many others had signed up for this plan. And there was another one that had some hidden information where the price of the plan was not disclosed, but you had to click on terms and conditions to see it. So again, we see that the scarcity didn't really work, which is kind of interesting. If you think about all those timers on shopping websites that this offer is only available, you know, for X many hours. All the other stuff really did work. If in the control group, 15% of people accepted the plan and confirmed shaming 20%, so that's a third more acceptance. Social proof, even more than that. And then if you straight up hide the information, if you don't disclose the price, you double. You double the rate at which people accept this product. And so as far as I know, and as far as these authors know, this is the first sort of publicly available academic paper that looks at how effective this stuff is. We can only assume that, you know, a lot of companies using these patterns have in-house social scientists that run these kinds of tests. But this is really a demonstration of, you know, how effective this stuff can work. And I just speaking personally, I was really surprised at how effective this was. And I think a lot of people were, because, you know, I like to think of myself as a pretty savvy consumer. A lot of us do. You know, we can be annoyed. We certainly notice some of this stuff, but to see just how effective it is really sort of puts the lie to the, you know, the argument that, you know, you just need savvy consumers to shame companies into not doing this stuff. I mean, I think we've seen that just hasn't happened. There's another interesting point in this paper. In one of the experimental conditions, they tripled the price of this data plan. I think they said it would be $38 per month, which is just outrageously expensive. Like there's no privacy plan that should cost more than about $10 a month. They found out the price didn't matter. Again, the neoclassical economic argument is that if you have a very high price, the consumer is going to be more attentive because there's more at stake. But the price didn't matter at all. What mattered was the interface that they were put through. And then they also broke it down by, you know, people who had more education, less education, and folks who were less educated were a lot more susceptible to these patterns. They were more likely to accept the plan. They were less likely to realize that they had accepted the plan. So this stuff really works. There was another study in The Markup, which is a great investigative site looking at all things tech. They actually asked readers to click through a bunch of interfaces and to identify whether something was wrong or whether it looked okay. Only 25% of them correctly identified the dark patterns, which is really amazing when you think about it. You know, but that could tell us either that people don't know what this stuff is or that we see it everywhere and we just think that's design. We're just used to it. And to the point made earlier about, you know, buying a car, there's been some research that shows consumers are a lot less suspicious online. We are more suspicious in in-person sales environments, like buying a car, you know, or like going in a store, because we've learned that there are sales techniques. We sort of learned to be a little more aware, and we might know some of the techniques that folks use online. We expect it to be, we think we're in control. We expect it to be sort of a more neutral environment. And it's really not. Companies use the entire interface. You know, we expect them to use advertising, but they use the whole online experience. So there's a few other things going on that I think make this more of a problem online. You know, there's no longer sort of a single, more and more, there's no such thing as one website, right? If you think about a traditional brick and mortar retailer, you go to a store and there is a store. They can, you know, change the displays a little bit. They can make changes to it, but it is one location for different people to go to. Online, it's not one location. It's a site, an app that's a lot of times is being dynamically created. at the time that you go to it. A lot of the times it's personalized for you based on information that they know about you. And it's also being A/B tested. Different elements of it are being A/B tested to give different people slightly different experience. So just to really quickly describe A/B testing, it's, for example, a website like the Huffington Post, where I used to work, we would give the same article multiple headlines, and the website would serve up the same article with different headlines to different people, and it would figure out which headline was the clickiest. And then after it ran that test for a while, it would just permanently affix that headline to that piece. So that's a way of making sure you have, quote unquote, the best headline for your piece. This is no longer happening, just with headlines. It's happening with all kinds of things, the text on a page, the size of it, the color of it, the display of it, slightly different tweaks to consent boxes, really everything. It's being automatically tested and tweaked to be the most effective for each individual person. So that makes it harder to track, again, because it's not like there is a single website where you can see how they're serving up certain things. It's being, dynamically created and tweaked for every individual user. So there's two state laws that have talked about dark patterns. There's the California Privacy Rights Act, and then there's the Colorado Privacy Act, which has been passed but not yet signed. That's really it. On a federal level, this stuff is, the FTC is starting to think about it. The FTC is sort of the agency, the Federal Trade Commission is the agency that would be logical to deal with this stuff, because their charter says they regulate the unfair and deceptive conduct. But then, of course, what is unfair and what is deceptive? It's up for questioning, right? The FTC is definitely listening. This is a quote from the workshop that the FTC had back in April to talk about dark patterns. They heard from a lot of academics, a lot of sort of privacy activists and just digital democracy groups to indicate that they want to regulate this stuff, and they're trying to think about a way to regulate this stuff. And it's really important with something like cookies and something like tracking, because we don't have a federal privacy law. And because the current state of the law is that companies can basically track you as long as they tell you that they're doing it. The only cases that the government has brought that have to deal with sort of tracking and privacy is when they've been able to demonstrate that companies have been deceptive. That's why we see, cookie consent pop-ups everywhere, because the companies are basically covering their butts. They're like, hey, look, we're tracking you. If you see this, it's okay. Obviously, the FTC is thinking about this, and it's thinking about sort of all these different tactics that companies use to manipulate you into giving up your data, figuring out, is it manipulation or is it not? The same commissioner, Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, said just a couple months ago in an interview that she does believe that these dark patterns are not just deceptive, but are also unfair, which would mean the FTC would be able to regulate it. This is just a quote from Facebook's filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission where it tells its investors what's going on. Facebook is aware of this, and it's basically saying, hey, we're effective because of how we display content. And if the government changes the laws to change how we can display stuff or how we get consent, that could be bad for us. So Facebook knows about it. And there have been a few recent cases where the FTC has gone after this deceptive stuff. This is an example from 2019 where they went after Office Max and Office Depot over some fake virus scanning. And what would happen is when a consumer would walk into Office Max or Office Depot with a computer, salespeople would give it a scan and find that it needed to get this sort of virus removal service. It would, you would get these pop-ups, it would be scanning your computer for performance. It turned out all that stuff was fake. So this is pretty clearly an example of not just a dark pattern, but really they're unequivocally, lying to you. They're telling you that you have viruses and bad performance when this is not actually going on. So Office Max had to pay a big fine for that. They did not have to admit wrongdoing. This is another case about a payday loan service, AMG Services, and what happened there was let's see. I'm just going to click on this real quick. This former race car driver Scott Tucker had a payday loan service where the terms were different for a payday loan that you would pay off immediately or a loan that you would carry over month to month. And the terms were described in very, very fine print, sort of buried in the terms and conditions. The FTC brought this in court, many different courts, and the courts found that, it's not okay to just put something in very fine print in terms and conditions. You have to look at it from the point of view of a reasonable consumer. So that's the good news. The bad news is the Supreme Court recently overturned this, and they found that the FTC was correct to find this kind of conduct illegal, but that they exceeded their authority in getting the 1.3 billion fine the way that they did. So little bit of good news, bad news there. Let's see, how do I get back to the presentation? I know I'm a little over on time, but we're very close to the end. This is a settlement that the FTC got just last year about this company ABC Mouse, which steered parents into the sort of recurring online subscription that they were deceptive about. And that is something that the FTC is looking at again very closely. This particular pattern of online subscription or recurring subscription where you're subscribed to something and then you have to opt out of it, or you have to jump through all these hoops to unsubscribe. But it's a work in progress. It's a lot of this stuff is still being developed. The FTC is obviously looking for what it can do under its current authority. There's also lots of laws in Congress that would, lots of bills that are being proposed that would crack down on this stuff, but as we know, getting stuff through Congress is no easy feat. So I would say there is some hope on the horizon for consumers. There's some kind of regulation coming. How severe it will be, how permissive it will be is still pretty up in the air, and it's definitely going to be an area of negotiation for the FTC and the industries that it regulates. So last slide, I just threw in a couple of resources here. If you guys want to learn more about this, darkpatterns.org is Harry Brignall's website. It has a hall of shame with a lot of examples. Some of them have been in this presentation, but there's a lot of examples of types of dark patterns, companies using dark patterns. Dark Patterns Tip Line is a new project run by Consumer Reports and other folks where people can actually submit examples of dark patterns that they've had to go through. They also have a hall of shame of sorts of companies doing this stuff. There's the Twitter account of Dark Patterns, and then that's the link to the FTC workshop from late April, where they ran through a lot of these academic presentations. Also talked to a lot of digital activists, a lot of folks, working on these issues. We haven't talked about children here, and we haven't talked about sort of disparate impact on historically marginalized communities, people of color in particular, and that FTC workshop has presentations on both of those things. So that is all I got. I went a little bit over, I know, and sorry for that, but if you all have any comments or questions at this point, I'd love to hear them.
You don't need to be sorry. Your presentation was great. I think we all loved so much information, overwhelming, but very, very helpful, very in-depth, very appreciated.
Good deal. Thank you, Roy.
Turn it over to Diana.
I was just wondering if any of these studies took into consideration the ages of adults and found that any particular age group was more or less susceptible to these manipulative tactics. Because they mentioned education level, but not actual age.
That's a great question, Diana. I don't think that was part of either of those studies. Again, that's definitely something the FTC is looking at. If you hit that link at the bottom, and again, I'll share this with you all after, so that you can browse and educate yourselves more. But the FTC heard from a few folks who deal with specifically the topic of disparate impacts. I mean, there's been quite a bit of work on kids in particular, because a lot of this stuff is it's prevalent on like kids sites, YouTube Kids, certainly like video games, and we've seen that kids in particular don't have the they can't distinguish from like something like an ad versus something that's part of a game. Because the stuff in video games is particularly pervasive. There's all these ads that are made to look like they're part of the game. Right. There's also there's the issue of fake money. A lot of these games will they'll have coins, or they'll have in-game currency that are sort of related to the credit card that the parent has on file with the game, but it's really not clear, how it's related. Often the child will, be playing with this fake currency and not realize that their parent is actually, paying real money. This was an issue with Facebook a few years ago. When kids, just racked up like thousands in charges, and the parents.
Yeah. Well, one would expect kids to be more naive about that kind of stuff. But I was thinking, even among adults, does the fact that our younger generation is more web savvy make a difference? And, as balancing out the experience of the older generation generally, as far as sales pitches are concerned, do they kind of cancel each other out? Or does one group really have an advantage over the other among adults, not kids?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I personally have not seen that sort of particular kind of study done. But I would be surprised if people are not doing it. I think it's, I think that's great to think about. Yeah. Jonathan Bernstein, hello.
Oh, Irina, I'm so glad that it worked out that you could talk to our group. Yeah, I wasn't able to attend your whole talk, but one kind of question I had is there any group like Consumer Reports or anybody else who actually grades websites and apps by the presence or absence of deceptive practices?
That is an excellent idea. And while I don't think I haven't heard of a group that does this, it's definitely something that some of these academics have proposed. Maybe it could be, you could think of something like a grade for a specific service or website, or you could, for instance, in a browser, you could build in sort of dynamic pop-ups that alert you to specific elements, because again, some of these things are going to be very different for different users. So Arinesh Mathur, the person with the paper at the start of the presentation, one of his suggestions was, if you think of something like a countdown timer, your browser could then show a little pop-up next to it saying, hey, this is a feature that is likely fake, and it could potentially, have you click to learn more. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that's been proposed. I think it would be awesome if there were a group to do sort of overall grades. It's not something that I've heard of being done so far. But again, I would guess that there are people working on this pretty closely.
I was thinking of that when you were talking about how in competitive industries, the competition seems to be a downward spiral. And it would really be enlightening if the consumers in a competitive industry could have that information to factor into their choices.
No, that would be great. But then, I would argue that that's also putting a lot of pressure on the consumer, right? That you have to know this stuff and you have to be educated. And something that other folks have suggested, I talked with someone from the Center of Digital Democracy, is to just regulate it much more, to not just say that, hey, these particular sites, these particular companies are doing these shady things, because again, some people have done that already, like darkpatterns.org has been doing that for ages, and they're very active. Their Twitter account is extremely popular. People are always suggesting things. They're calling out companies doing this, and it doesn't seem to have worked. And in a way, it is asking a lot for the consumer to imagine that you're going into this lion's den and to just be aware that it's a lion's den. Some people really want much more aggressive enforcement of the type that would just have companies not do these shady practices or be penalized very heavily if they do these shady practices. Their argument is that it's not really a level playing field, that the companies have a lot more advantages. They're using this whole, they're not just using ads, they're using the whole online experience, the whole online interface to their advantage. And that you can't really expect consumers to just have knowledge and be able to fight back, by making smart choices.
Well, can I just make one more comment? I know that time is getting late. So it seems pretty clear that some things wouldn't really be kind of gradable, but is there anybody who has tried to come up in the academic writing with objective standards about these things to be able to give a kind of grade?
Yeah, I think if you look at some of these papers, there's definitely agreement on some things as far as what would be a dark pattern versus what would be a clear creativity. But it's also a little debatable, right? Because it's still early days and this technology is rapidly evolving, and a particular type of pop-up could be interpreted very differently by you or by me, by people of different age groups, by people of different education levels. So I feel like a lot of this stuff is still being researched, but there are definitely design standards there's some agreement as to what is ethical design and what is good design versus what is, underhanded and questionable. And some of that, if you look at the FDC workshop, or if you click through those two papers, they start to get at some of that a little bit.
Well, all I can say is thanks so much, and let me mute myself. And sorry I couldn't participate in the whole meeting. Thanks again, Irina.
Thank you, John. Yeah, we're sorry to miss you, but happy you could pop in.
It's coming in from England. That very clear signal coming across the channel there. So, again, thank you very much, Irina, for coming and speaking to our club and giving us all this information. That's really quite informative, because yes, we've all seen it, but we haven't known the depth of the darkness of it.
It's everywhere. Yeah, thank you so much for this. This is really, really fun. I'm very glad that I got to do this and to chat with you all. Yeah, so like I said, I guess I'll share this. I'll share this doc with you. I put my contact info at the first slide, on my Twitter, because I want you guys to reach out to me if you have comments, or if you have questions, or if you've seen some of this stuff and you think it warrants more news coverage.
See
Hit me up,
some
'cause-
new examples.
exactly. Yeah. If you see something, say something, as they say in the New York City Police Department. Yeah, I love just talking to folks about this stuff, and hearing from you all about what your experiences have been, because that's what helps us journalists do stories on this and then learn more about this. So yeah, I really it's just fun. I hope this can be a two-way street going forward. And, yeah. All right. So let's see. I should. There we go. Thank you for stopping sharing the page. Cool.
I think I don't think we have any other issues to discuss today. We can let everybody go out to their Saturday and search the web, and now go with a much more knowledgeable basis of the tactics that are being used against us, and appreciate more of what Apple's been doing and not accepting or having people not track. And I know I've been clicking on those, seeing those things and always seeing the marketing checked and trying to uncheck the marketing. And hopefully we can believe the other buttons. That's the thing. The buttons are there, but can we believe them? So,
yes.
Okay. Well, I think we'll conclude the meeting, and I will close the meeting, close the doors. So everybody go and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, Roy. Thanks, everyone.